Howdy folks, welcome to an Unreal Engine tutorial. We'll kind of go over the basics of Unreal Engine as a little introduction, and then we'll make a little obstacle course that has 3 different kind of platform obstacles to get y'all started and show y'all how to like start messing around with more of that stuff. But I just installed this new version 5.8. So seeing what this whole welcome screen is new to me, but we can go to new project here. Okay, and this goes back to what we're used to. And we want a third person map. You know, you got different templates here if you want to start like a film project, you know, like an animation, 3D animated project, or footage and stuff as well. Something more architecture directed. It's wild that there's a automotive has its own whole section here, simulation, but we're in games and we're going to do third person. You can eventually, you know, explore top down, first person, all the different templates to work with in game modes, or I guess character modes. But third person, blueprint, and it looks like there used to be a little place to include the starter pack, but maybe we'll have to add that ourselves, which the starter pack has a bunch of like, you know, sample assets that you can move around and stuff. But let's see, I'm gonna call this obstacle course tutorial, or tut. How about that? We're gonna hit create. But yeah, we'll do some disappearing platforms, some moving platforms, and a bounce pad. And then we'll have some finish line little celebratory things. And, you know, we'll explore some of the different ways to get assets into the game. Maybe some player control adjustments. But I want to keep this as a brief introduction to the software. Okay, we have our obstacle course loaded. I don't know about y'all, but that took a long time for my map to get loaded in. It was compiling shaders for a while. I'm at a 2000 level graphics card, so that could be a reason why I'm starting to get out of date for these newer versions of Unreal Engine and what all they're pushing. But here's Unreal Engine in general. Whoops, I accidentally moved around. So we have our main game window here, and you know, there's ways to open multiple windows with multiple views if you need it, you know, from your character perspective, or top down, or outside, or from the perspective of a certain camera. You know, you can split it all sorts of different ways if you want. Tons of options. But we'll just keep it at this one for now. I'm on a PC, so some things might be different on the Mac. I know Mac is funny with Unreal Engine, and you have to download the right version of Xcode because it doesn't want you to edit code at all on a Mac. But anyway, so right click, I can pan and tilt my perspective of my viewer here. Left click, we're scooching forward, we're scooching back, and as I'm moving my mouse, you know, it's kind of like you're on a lockdown tripod. You can do some dollying and rotating there, and then the middle mouse button lets you move on the Z axis. And if I'm moving my mouse, I'm making some lateral movements there. That's how we're getting that done. That's moving around the viewer, and also the WASD, WASD. I can click with any mouse button, but right click gives you the most like fluid, like moving around options and stuff. Like if I'm middle mouse clicking, you know, I can only move on that Z axis. If I'm left mouse clicking, I can only move forward. But my right mouse, it becomes basically like third person free flying. or first person in this scenario. But so that's moving around. That's our main window. Over here, you got your quote unquote layers, or your outliner, which can get way more complicated with a game because you have environmental elements and code elements and lighting elements. You just got to explore and get used to them. I won't really change much about the lighting. I'll show y'all a couple of things, but that'll be something, you know, to explore in other tutorials. And, you know, just keep the learning process going. We're just going to focus on this obstacle course here. But you can see all this different aspects of the lighting to make this, you know, Unreal Engine realistic lighting situation look great. That's our lighting, and then the little playground here that we're going to delete a lot of this stuff inside to kind of make one from scratch. And so you can see cubes, cylinders, all different sorts, and these are SM static meshes, so no code involved with them. If you want something to be interacted with, or to have some actions happening, or, you know, just anything other than being static environmental elements, you want to make it into a blueprint. Rarely do you not, in my brief experience so far. But yeah, so these are just static mesh items, which we'll use. Some to collapse, and then we got our player start. That's our little pillbox, a little capsule. You move around where your player starts. Then data layers and partition mini map, that kind of some stock elements that we won't really mess with here because we're not going to really get big enough to worry about that. That's when you start getting really large maps that you need, you know, loaded at different rates and whatnot to save your computer some RAM space. But so outliner / layers up here. You can see when I click on an object, this panel opens up, and this is where you get your detail panel, you know, get some world settings options. There's a little map of the world partition if you start getting into that stuff. But usually any object has some stuff over here we can manipulate, and this will manipulate the instance of that object, where this object itself, if we browse to the asset, this is the instance, we can double click on the actual object and get into, you know, the guts of it and make permanent changes. So when we drag this into the world, those changes are consistent. But this is another little feature on how we'll be managing everything in this program, is any of these meshes and blueprints and materials and animations and all that stuff, when you double click it, it's going to open up these little windows, and there'll be different editors for the different types of objects. But, you know, you kind of create your internet tab system up here of all the stuff you're cooking and working with, and, you know, manage your tabs. Don't have them all open at once, or, you know, you can drag it over to a second monitor if you have that, and, you know, build up some tabs on this, keep certain tabs on your main screen. But yeah, so that's a little pop-up editor tab, little instance details panel. Over here on the I'm saving the best for last down here. Over here on the left, you'll have some various tools depending on what mode you're in. You know, right now we're in selection mode. So, you know, you hop over to modeling mode, like you're, you know, getting your mild version of Blender in here. You can make some stuff, but, you know, these game softwares are better for compiling, I think. You know, a lot of times something detailed and intricate, you know, you'll have people model it over in Blender or Maya or something, and then you bring it into Unreal. Unless it's part of an experiment, or you want to utilize all the tools within the system so you don't have to open up multiple things, you can get some interesting modeling done in here. But, you know, for quick walls or something, it's definitely useful. Or to make quick mock-ups that are like placeholders for the more detailed models that your artists are working on. Yeah, modeling mode, mesh paint, landscape generator for your big old map. But yeah, these are your tools depending on what mode you're in. Up here you can like quickly bring in some lights and whatnot. Here's a little point light you can stick there, and you can see its radius is displayed through that wireframe. A lot of sound elements and light elements will have like a radius of influence. You can change over here in the details panel if you want. Yeah, that's up to you to experiment. I just hit the delete key to get rid of that. So yeah, that's a quick little brief preview into the tools panel over here. Yeah. Then we can access our blueprints, our level blueprint that is right here, which sometimes you need. Sometimes you can build a whole game just with blueprints running inside their own individual objects. Yeah, level sequencer, your cutscenes, we can hit play to simulate the level and it brings us in. You saw, I think, took my mesh a moment to generate there, or my material from a character, and I'm just doing WASD, spacebar to jump. I think that's all that it comes coded with to begin with. Yeah, you can see we got a little gravity hang time going on. Maybe something kind of new. A little bit of a floaty descent. Which I can show y'all some quick ways to edit that stuff. Alright, hit escape to get out of there. And get back to overlooking. So best for last, your content drawer. If this isn't popping up and it's making you click that, instead of having it permanently popped up, you can go up here to Window, Content Browser, and just click it, and that'll, keep it open permanently. That's to have multiples open on, maybe if you have different windows or something. Yeah, different windows that we might touch on some of these, but that'll be in your further explorations where you bump into all these things, like your tools, your builds, to, export out a working copy and whatnot. File, to save and import and do all that stuff. Over here, an important button that you'll use a lot in your future projects in the outliner here. Wait, did they move it? World settings. There's usually a little project settings button. Window. World settings. Well, we can get to it there through the edit window, but there's usually, maybe they moved the button around. I'm not seeing it. Project settings. So we'll get in here, all sorts of stuff to mess with. Maps and modes, if you get multiple maps, or if you bring in, we're using third-person game mode. You might have first-person or, top-down. If you get multiple maps, you can make different ones your default startup map. Different limitations on packaging. It just kind of depends when you get to it, when you need to hop into the project settings and change some stuff. Different tutorials that you'll encounter will have you kind of change up different things in here, but just need to know that it's there. So, down here, content browser. This is where all your game stuff is. So it generates some default folders for this default map. You can make one that's like clean and empty with nothing in it, but some, having some of these starter elements to get things going can save you some time. Won't mess with this folder much. The engine, I don't know much code, so I kind of stay away from it. But then here in the content, you can see characters, mannequin, meshes. That's all the different meshes and skeletons for our character. It's materials. I'll look at some materials here in a minute. Input. That's our input mapping, which we may or may not get into that. We might just use quick hotkeys for the time being to keep this brief. Here's our level prototyping. Got some meshes there. And these meshes, although they look simple, they're kind of coded in a certain way to where, that grid work generates as you scale it up and down and whatnot. So it kind of moves, or it parallaxes with the objects as you scale them and change them around, if you do it right. Sometimes you can stretch them. Level prototyping. Then our third person. This is our level here. You can see this material green that they're using, the blueprints. Here's our character blueprint. We'll hop in there in a little bit. Player, controller, and game mode. And, you know, more involved tutorials. You can get into game mode and change things, you know, for point counters and different inputs. And, you know, if you're bringing in multiplayer things or something, or save states, all sorts of different stuff. But we won't mess with that too much. Content, and, you know, if you're making a new project, you can hit new folder and my game, you know, keep it separate and keep good organization and hierarchy. That way you know what all like you have personally added into this game and what stuff like kind of came stock in this game, right? Yeah, so that's the content browser that's got all your stuff in it. It is, you know, in your project file, but it might not all necessarily export to your game file. If you know, in your export settings, tell it to not include things that aren't, that haven't been included in the game project itself, if they're only in the content drawer. So I can save on some game size. But to get started, I want to delete all this stuff, because I'm going to make my own little platforms and whatnot. Now you can leave stuff in here and make it part of your map. Duplicate some things. I guess I can show you that. You can click on this stuff. We can move it around on the XYZ axis. That's because right now I have the select and translate objects tool as my main thing, right? I could have just select objects, which you'll see is QWER. When, you know, sometimes you get mad. R should be rotate. Rotate shouldn't be E. And, you know, Y is W, the move tool and whatnot. Well, you can see it so it's right above your WASD button. So it kind of is keeping you in gamer mode as part of the editor system. So we can rotate it if we want. Could show you how to, well, you know, there's ways to change the anchor point. We can scale that up. W to move, R or E to rotate, R to scale. Yeah. And then backspace to delete. Let's see here. Is it quick? Right click. Pivot. That's like your origin point in Blender. Center on selection. Oh. Oh, I guess we go over into modeling. Edit pivot. Center. Accept. So the little X form editing the pivot can come in handy a lot. But you see something happened. It edited the pivot on those walls as well for some reason. I'm gonna hit undo and wonder why. Is it because it's the same thing and they just reskinned it? So you start to discover like how people built these levels and how other people build their levels and what all is a connected object. SM Cube 10. They are all the, so depending on, you know, if they duplicated or copied and pasted or something, these could be instances of each other. Or if I click this one and edit the pivot and center and accept, See, it changes that cylinder also. So it's not just doing the instance, it's doing the static mesh itself. And that could be where details, instance. Anyway, there's ways to make it not an instance. We won't get into that. You can change its pivot point. Edit, copy. It's frustrating. But so is this game. Edit pivot. Apply to all? No. Center? Accept? No. Make copies in the content browser. Yeah, okay. So it's just using the same static mesh. And so be careful with that, with how you build these things. Sometimes you want it to edit all the pivot points of those objects, and sometimes you don't. So boy, it's hard to like rebuild once you get way deep in a level and whatnot. So watch more tutorials, get more experience, and maybe build some larger mock projects that can help you get used to your preferred way to build these games. And that just gives you an idea of hopping into other people's games and how they build their files. It can be nuts. They made Marvel Rivals in this thing. Can you imagine if you open this file up and it was Marvel Rivals? The overlapping and cascade of code and stuff is insane to think about. But so what do I want to do here? Level prototyping meshes, ramp, SM cube. That's SM cube. Let's bring this in here. Or actually, we can do a quick bit of modeling where I'm just going to make kind of like a simple mouse maze with this thing. Are we 1, 2, 3, 4? Or actually 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I'm just gonna make 2 walls. And get used to navigating around. So let's see here. So basic shape, a cube. There's a basic cube that we can mess with the materials, or we can create box. And these things just have different properties to them. I can get that placed there. You want to get, close to what you want. Can I go farther than that? Yes, but width. Y'all see how when I first did it, it comes out. Oh, no, wait. Maybe it doesn't. Okay, now I gotcha. So it is coming from the center. 2,000. No, 4,000. I'm editing the width up here. So 3,000. Yeah, I just need this wall here. And you can kiss it up against the wall there, or, punch it through a little bit. So there's a little bit of overlap. So, there's a seam. Width, we can, or depth, I should say, we can double it. Height. 500. Okay. You can see our material acts a little different when we do it this way. It's like scaling up our material, right? As opposed to accept. Let me place another. Oh, so it's changing our, default size. So we can go back to regular box, hit accept. Then if we scale it up, you see what it does there. It is stretching our material in all sorts of different ways that we might not want it to. Stretching the material out that way. Let's see what it's doing there when I was scaling it in the modeling, kind of prep space. It scales up the material, which is something you might not want either if you have like a detailed material that you don't want, to show it too scaled up, so because it gets pixelated or something. And then over here, you don't want to stretch your material in any funny way if you're not, proportionally stretching your object. So it can get kind of tricky when you're making these things and just being aware of what your materials are going to do. Because once you start building a world with specific materials, and if things are accidentally linked and you stretch one material on one object, and it might start stretching random ones that you may have forgotten or applied to other objects, it can get confusing. And then let's see what our quick cube, how that does. See, this one's different because it's a white cube. So it'll be hard to tell if our material is stretched, but we can throw another material on it and see how it does. Punch that through there. All right. So let's put the gray, this material, with its like kind of repeating cube pattern. Browse the asset. There's our cube. We can go over here to its materials, and you see these buttons below it. These first two you'll use a lot, where this will absorb whatever you have selected over in the content browser. So if I had a yellow one selected over here, which I can do, we can go to, where was it? This one. It'll absorb that and use that material. Or we can browse to this material that's selected right there, and now I have that highlighted, and on these ones we can absorb it. Wow, interesting. You can see that it is coded in such a way that no matter what way you use it, it gives you consistent square grid. That's interesting because, well, let's go ahead and add a feature or content pack. Fascinating. Where did the starter content go? That might be gone. There used to be a little starter content thing that you could add to the game, but add feature content pack. Add feature. Maybe I didn't add it to this version of Unreal. That's fascinating. Now, if I go to import, that does pop up. I'm hopping in. Material. Building material, base material. Okay. Maybe I'll cut that out. Or leave it in so you can see what it's like to scramble and not know where your stuff is. But instead of feature or content pack, we can go over to Fab and we can grab a material. And price to free. So this is like a marketplace for Unreal Engine ready objects that they partnered with Fab. It's been a bunch of other different things in the past, but right now it's Fab, and you can get the plugin where it opens up within Unreal Engine and we can grab it. And so I'm picking just a quick rock thing, and we'll go over this again once we start wanting to decorate our obstacle courses. But let's just grab this and do high quality, add to project. And I'm just wanting to see if this material is scaling funny with our diversely scaled objects. And wow, this is taking a long time for one material. Starting to worry with this new version of Unreal if I'm gonna need to upgrade this computer to get any good work done. Something I could skip to. Okay. All that for one material. There it is. Think it'll work? All right. Yeah, okay, so stretched. Stretched. Scaled funny, real big. Yeah. And then we'll see how we can see how they built these walls. Yep, these walls are just stretched. So it kind of changes depending on how you build your assets, how the materials react. So that's probably a normal scale for that material. But to make the walls, you know, they just stretched them and whatnot. And luckily this material that they have coated is coated to loop and not stretch. It has these like parallaxing functions where it just always maintains, you know, proper square grid appearance. So I'm going to undo. What's the least offensive? I guess the one where I scaled it up in the original, because that'll be easier to scale down than figuring out how to stretch it, unstretch it that way, unstretch it that way, unstretch it that way, right? These I can delete. Okay, we're back. So, random cube. I'm gonna scoot that over into the wall and then down so it's flush, just for aesthetic reasons. Alt. I'm gonna move that over. Yeah, and this is like kind of what my obstacle course will be. Just simple, just to get used to old Unreal Engine, so we can change our player start. We can just pick one of these things to be the beginning. And then rotate it around. Which way? Oh yeah. And you see everything snapping nicely and whatnot, and that's over here. What do we got here? Yeah, rotation snap every 10 degrees, scale snap every 0.25 units, moving things around, snaps on the grid every 10 units. And we got extra snapping functions up here, different selection functions up here. But again, we're doing it quick, just making just kind of large objects. Yeah. So maybe I'll keep it simple with some cubes and whatnot. But a lot of these things are going to be interactive and have blueprints to them going on. So let's see here. I need to make my first blueprint. And you can see what this fab texture did, like made all this crazy hierarchy. Of things that it's included. And you know, you can just look through these at your leisure and kind of get used to what all's going on in here. But we're gonna make our first blueprint. It's gonna be, you know, an interactive object, something that like actions are going on, and mine's gonna be disappearing platforms. And so I'm going to, in the My Game folder, you know, you can get more specific, make a folder, platforms, because that's going to be the main thing that's going to be something that I have enough to make a category out of, right? I'm going to have 3 different platforms. You could have characters or weapons or tools or ingredients, all sorts of different folders for all sorts of different things. So in platforms, I'm going to right click, make a new blueprint. Yeah, I'm gonna make an actor. I'm gonna name it BP underscore disappearing platform. BP for blueprint. All right, and we'll go in here, and here's our blueprint window. I can tab it up here. I can probably, I'll leave fab open for a second. But there's nothing. And then there's ways to like click on objects, right click. No, it's up here. Convert selection to blueprint. And some tutorials will tell you to do that, but then I've run into problems where when you do that, it doesn't create this scene root. That can become problematic when you're trying to move it around or have things lock onto something that, and this is tricky to generate after the fact. So yeah, just making it a blueprint at first comes in handy. I guess you can have it as a placeholder, just as a static mesh, but avoid converting static meshes to blueprints, I think. Other people might say otherwise. But so I'm gonna add, You know, there's all sorts of things, like anything can become a blueprint. It's like nesting in Premiere Pro. It's like grouping layers in Photoshop. It's like a pre-comp in After Effects. You know, you can flatten a whole part of a game's worth of code into a single blueprint character, and it can make it run on its own independently. And some elements in a game you might want them to be able to operate independently of each other. So we got a static mesh here. I'm going to bring that in. Or wait, cube. That's not what I'm doing. The static mesh is so you can load in assets that you get from outside of the engine. You can load up whatever static mesh into an empty slot. But me, I just want this cube, and I'm going to scale it down on the Z, and that's all I want. Right there. That's it. So every time you make changes in your blueprint, you want to compile, save. Compile checks to make sure the code's working. We haven't coded anything, so it's fine. But compile, save. And then let's drag this in and see what that looks like. All right, and we can get a sense of scale and whatnot. You can hit the save button. You can see if things are unsaved down here. Just make sure everything's all saved. Let's hit play. All right, so that's our platform we got there. It ain't doing much yet. But let's figure it out. So we want to make it a little bigger, I think. Doesn't have to be much thicker. Guess it could be 0.2. Is that crazy big? Yeah, I can make them kind of like big zone, big kind of cartoonishly big things or something like that. Maybe a little less. 3. Nope, undo that last one. Yeah, right? All right, we're okay there. So I got a blueprint platform. We want to bring it up. We can Alt. I'm going to make 3 of these platforms. Okay. And so we need them to disappear. Let's get over into the code. So I kind of was real quick and didn't tell you about all this area. But right, you got your blueprint stack right here that just tons and tons of stuff can get into this. Animations, particles, more assets, pivot points, all sorts of things can be added in here. It'd be crazy. You just have to experience them as they come. And then down here you can create variables, which will create some eventually. And these are just different states and different functions. You can see there's booleans for on and off, yes and no. There's bytes, there's integers for numbers if you want to change size, scale, or frequency of something. Names and text, vectors for your XYZ, locations, you know, rotation and scale as well. This is for the movement. But yeah, we can get into variables in a little bit. Event dispatchers, you know, if you want one thing in your level to trigger another, you can get into that. Functions, which are little, again, pre-composed chunks of code, but then you can use one node to represent that chunk of looping code. And speaking of code, here is the event graph where we'll build this code. And you'll see actors can overlap your object. You can go with the tick of the game. I'm going to delete those because when we begin play, is what I want to happen. So on our object, when we begin play, I'm going to put a delay node here. And just tons of nodes. I'm not going to go over all of them. We'll be here forever. We'll just use the ones that we need as we go. But all your code and whatnot, when you drag these pins, pop up, all your code options, that is, and they're endless. It's a crazy amount. But you'll get some main players that you're using as you go through this program. But for now, I'm going to use delay. And that means when we start the game, it will delay 3 seconds, and then when that is done, hidden, set actor hidden in game, and yes, it will be hidden. So compile, save, and when you're in the blueprint, you can still preview your game. 1, 2, 3, and they're gone. Now we want that to come back so we can, this is, again, did I skip over this? This is blueprints. This is coding a game represented as visual little nodes and noodles that connect them. So imagine a paragraph of your typical code in Python or something using C++ that is in this little visualized widget window. And that's how you can code a game entirely visually rather than having to specifically learn the coding language. It helps. I need to do it. But Control C, Control V. And then after 3 seconds, it reappears. So compile, save, play. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, back. But now that's the end of our code. Now how do we make that loop? So what we need to do is kind of create a custom event that will help us to, you know, create a looping situation where it calls back to itself. All right. Event begin play. And those come back. Set actor hidden in game. We're going to copy and paste. Alt click, you can delete some of those. And I've broken it up. So this is up here, or this is disappear. This is reappear. And so what you can do is make a custom event, add custom event, and name it, oh, I've learned this, CE platform disappear. So CE for custom event, and then you can see in your event graph, you get a little custom thing. So that makes it disappear. And then we can make another custom event and make CE platform reappear. Okay, right. And how can we loop these back, right? Let me see this real quick. Yeah, that's what we want. So after a 3-second delay, the actor disappears. And then when that code is done, we can make it kick on platform reappear, right? And it will go over here and fire up this custom event, which after 3 seconds, it will make it reappear. And then we can kick it back, and we have created a looping code, right? We can delete this, and then run platform disappear when our event starts. So it'll go to disappear, delay 3 seconds, it'll hide, it'll reappear, that'll run, and then we run disappear. And for the rest of the game, that loop is running. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have our disappearing platforms all ready to go. Let's escape. So, as you saw, that doesn't work with all of the platforms disappearing at the same time, because these are all instances of one blueprint. They're all going to run off of this. But if you want the instances to be variable, we can make some variables for the duration there. So let's right click this one, promote it to variable, and we'll call it disappear timing. We can go this, promote to variable, reappear timing. Right? Okay. Those are fine. Platform disappear, compile, save. Let's go over to our level editor. And so this one, when we click on it, oh, I missed a spot. I didn't check these eyeballs. Variable is not public and will not be editable. We want to make these instance editable. That's what that eyeball means, because we want to edit our instances. Now when I click, look what I have under default: disappear timing, reappear timing. So that one's 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we can make that one. Oh, wait a second. We want another variable. Because yeah, you don't want to change this to 6. It's good to have those variables, but let's add a delay node here. So let's make a float. Rename loop start timing. To start the loop, get or set, right? But we're just getting, and we want to put a delay node here, so that way they'll all still be going 3 seconds unless you want to change or customize that. But now, so compile and save, and you can change the loop start timing. We can make that instance editable. Now that makes sense. Now the loop start timing, so 0, so it'll do the 3 second thing. We can make that delay for 3 seconds. We make that delay for 6 seconds. And now we should get a nice cascade. That didn't work. What did I do? Oh, I disconnected that. Be careful. Whole games will stop if you disconnect your noodles and your nodes. That's my bad. Now we're in. So we can figure out different math with all this stuff. Let's escape out of here. All right. That'll disappear after 3 seconds. Let's change that to 5 seconds. And that to 7 seconds? Is that what we want? Oh no, we're delaying it all. So maybe delay that by 2. We'll delay that by 4. We're getting into math a little bit here. See how that looks. So that disappears, that disappears, that disappears. Yeah. We probably change this to like 2 seconds. That way it like moves a little bit faster. Anyway, so we do need a little way to get up there. Let's add a ramp. Where was that stuff at? This ramp? Yeah. And it'll get used to, just like with all these 3D editing programs. It's tough getting used to how all this stuff moves around. You can see I'm getting used to my hotkeys still. Okay, so we got a ramp to get up there. I'm gonna move that back a little bit. Let's see if we can play this thing. Yeah, did you notice something that was wrong there? It's hidden, but we still need to hide or get rid of the collision. Save. So it's not just the visual, you need the mesh. So, collision. Is it set actor enable collision? Yes, collision. So, not hidden, yes collision, hidden, no collision. Does that make sense? Now, if we play... Oh. Oh. These things sure do get in a weird pattern, huh? What have I created here? Okay, that looks fine. That took a while. Sorry, my math was not wanting to happen. Okay, but you know, you can get more complicated than that if you want. What did we end on? So I kept the disappear and reappear timing variables the same, but it's just the loop start delay went from 3 seconds, 4 seconds to 5 seconds, which seems like that should have been the simplest thing from the beginning. But anyway, and you can make yours more complicated if you want, or add more platforms and stuff. But that's basically it. And then we can add another little ramp over here. Neat. Now we do need something that lets us know if we beefed it or if we failed. And that we can do through a trigger box. So let's go back to our stuff, my game, platforms. We can keep it in here. Or make a new folder. Trigger boxes. Let's make a blueprint actor, BP, reset trigger box. We'll double click that, and we want to add a what's it called? Collision box. Sorry, box collision. When you add it in here, there's a trigger box, but it's just like, you know, creating a collision box and whatnot. But box, we can make it, we can smoosh it down, make it nice and big. Compile, save. Let's bring that in here and see what that looks like. So for what we want, let's see, will it let us see it live? Yes. Okay. I just want this whole area. We're gonna make, you know, hot lava kinda. Hit compile, hit save. So that whole area. Let's go here. Event graph. When the actor begins an overlap, oops, on our trigger box, let's go down here, on component begin overlap, reset. Is it level? Well, you don't have to reset the level. We can teleport. The other actor, which is our actor that overlaps this object, to where? Where do we want our destination? Back to the player start. So what do we got? Negative 1290, 1520. And the Z, you know, 300. Compile, save. So now when I hit play, and that invisible trigger box, boop, it'll reset me back to this level. Bloop. And we can hit escape and we can go back to this situation with the scale and stuff, how I made it. You might want to use this in other places so we can reset the scale. We can just scale it here in the instance. What do y'all think of that? So now, you know, it's just, it'll show up as a cube and you scale it based on, you know, the place you're using it. Okay, we have a game right here. We have a fail state. We have some platforms disappearing. Let's go. But if I beef it, oh, and you can make it a little harder if you want, but that is the beginning of the game. What's next? Moving platforms. Okay. Exit out of here. I think I can take these two guys and put them right there. So disappearing platforms, we got those. But if I want to keep things consistent, like I like that platform, we can go over here, browse to asset, disappearing platform, and we can duplicate this. So it just saves me some steps. That's disappearing, but I'm going to name this moving platform. It just saves me some steps of just getting a consistent shape in there, and it just kind of depends on the object that you make. But I do want to get in here before I go any further and just delete any and all of this stuff, because I don't need that. We don't need those variables. And y'all saw over here earlier that I was editing variables with some of these settings. We can get into that more over here. So viewport. And this, so there's other ways, like we could get into this code here, event graph, event begin play, actor position, set actor location, or get actor location, right? And then we can like tween to the other location and whatnot. But there's this nice little kind of quick code on our cube, interp to movement, right? And that duration, control points, right? So the control point are, think of it as keyframes that Save that. Think of those control points as keyframes. So interp to movement. Control point 1 is where it is. Control point 2 is where we want it to go. And so we can look at the, what is it, Y location, -440, and we want it to go 12.8 to 840. Y'all see that? So that's 400. Oh, that's -440 to 840. So that's 1200. Yeah, it's 1200. So let's see how that looks. Moving platform. If my math is good. Y. 1200. Duration 1 second. That's going to be crazy looking. But something that's nice, if we don't want to simulate like from the player, we can do play from here. Oh. And that's the character. That'll drop the character wherever. But I can go up here. And yeah, simulate. Bop. Oh, it was 80, huh? Whoops. 12.8. Well, we have to tell it to boomerang. So I guess it's 80. It needs to go that extra 80. One shot. Ping pong. That's what we want. There it is. Now I got a moving platform going back and forth there. We can change that timing, right? Three seconds, is that better? Looks more kind of smooth, I suppose. Since we kept the size the same, we can bring our fail trigger box just over here. I'll scale that up a little bit. Now you could change that up, right? And have maybe it's like 2 platforms that touch in the middle and you have to like time that right. Or, you know, we could go ahead and do that. Let's see if we can do that real quick. Back that one up. Back that one up. Let's move you there. Now that means 18.8, which half of that is 9.4. So we're gonna go over here and do 940. File save. Play from here. That might be a little more than half, but we'll see. So now we need to change all these controls. Does that show up down here? Yes. Here it is. So we can change that in the instance. And I can make another one. Oh, don't do it that way. Bring that in. I accidentally added a second cube to the blueprint instance. Okay. All right. So this one, on the Interpreter movement, we want -940. We're gonna see what that does. Okay. So we'll change those. Let's see what 900. And you see I'm clicking on the Interpreter movement, and that'll give me this variable area that I'm allowed to change, that I'm able to change. So in my math, I should have like taken into account the size of the platform or something. So we're kind of, you know, -840. -840, which means I need to change that back to 840. We're almost there. Oh, so close. 800? This whole time? It was that simple? Yep. They might be overlapping a little. Boop. Anyway, how's our trigger box here? As for our fail state. Yeah. Let's make sure. You see it's snapping funny, so let's change the scale snapping. Yeah, that gives me a little bit more. Yeah. So I can right click, play from here. We got our moving platform. Yeah, unless I fail, then I'm back at the beginning. We got a level. Oh! Escape, escape, escape. Alrighty. Last but not least, BP moving platform, BP disappearing platform. Let's duplicate BP launch platform. All right. So let's open up a launch platform. We can get rid of interp to movement, event graph, event begin play. It's more so cube on component begin overlap. Yeah. We want to cast to our character. So yeah, their actor is this cast system, which is something I'm still figuring out. I just know in this situation it works. But so this object, you know, suddenly casts its effect to our character. And then we can go here and launch character. Target is the third person character. And I can check something real quick. Yeah. Jump Z velocity. Just checking on a thing right quick, sorry. Okay, yeah. Right. So, we want to launch the character. Now we want to get yeah, character movement. Get character movement right there. And I think we can.
What? Get character movement.
Oh yeah, we want to split our pins right here because we only want to launch our character on the Z axis. You can create other platforms that will launch on the X or the Y, but we're just making like a jump pad. And so now we're going to get our jump Z velocity, get jump Z velocity, launch velocity.
Now
and we want to multiply. So we'll take that to there. Let's multiply by 2. We'll see what that does. What do y'all think? And we're going to override Z. And we'll go over here and see what that does if we play from here and jump on this thing. Oh, nothing happened. What did I do wrong? I'll fix it. Might need collision is what I think that might need. Let me double check. Just going to, oh yeah, of course. I need to make a box collision. So there's a collision right on the box to stand on it, but box collision over here is where, you know, can become like a trigger box. So just some things work a little different, and we can scale this up to match our box. So we're adding a collision box that we can then like attach code to, which is what we need right now. And now on this box collision, save. And you know, you got sphere collision, capsule collision, and whatnot. We'll go over here. And it's not the cube overlap that we need. It is this box overlap that we need. And now, ideally, we should launch up really high. Boom. So let's do 20. How's that look? Doom, what? Okay, that was all right. How high does that go? Are we floating back down yet? I think we are. Okay, so that's entirely too much oomph. So let's see what 5 does. Right from here. Boom, there we go. And so up there, I wonder if we can see how, is there a measurable way to see how high that is? But let's make us a little platform. So again, we know this material, this might not be the best way to do things, but this material's coated in a nice way to remain being a square. So let's see here, scale. Oh, I did build it that way. Let's delete that. Let's make a box. Put it right there. Like that. So yeah, like 600 by 600. But we're going up high. Might need to even go higher than that. We'll see. What do y'all think? That's crazy. But let's get that material. Let's attach it to this guy. Oh, accept. Sorry, I didn't accept the box when I made it. Okay. Save. One unsave. We'll just do that. Play from here. Is this enough? Yeah. Oh. Are these walls? What? Hold on a second. Why did that not have any collision on it? Is it because, so this cube, collision, looking at different view modes. Lit. Show simple collision. Okay. Now this guy, the box I made, browse the asset. We're getting in a little bit of the deep paint here. There is no simple collision. So can I collision. Add box simplified collision. And that is all that that needs, I believe. And that will do that for the instance. Box 3. Okay. Collision. Add box simple. You can see that green that popped up there. Oops. So if you make, you know, your own asset there, be sure to add some collision to it. Just didn't realize I wasn't. Thought it came with it. Anyway. Now I wonder, so box. Where's it at? So it's right here. Shape. Positioning. World space. Create box. Static mesh. Maybe dynamic mesh would have added the collision. So no, I think this one is you might have to manually add the collision to these kinds of things. Hit cancel. What about cube there? Browse the asset. That comes with collision. Interesting, interesting, interesting. So the quick add cube comes with collision. The modeling does not initially come with collision. We're all still learning stuff, folks. Anyway, play from here. And zoom. Let's get up to this platform. And we win. We have won the game. Now we can create another. Trigger box kind of situation here. Right. And if we beep it, you'd reset. And we can change these trigger boxes to, you know, instead of resetting you back here, we could make that a variable in our code, right? Promote to variable. Destination, location, by default, it is at our player start. But this one, we could change it 120, negative 1690. Oh, we have to make an instance editable. $120, negative 1690. Save. We can delete that for now. Play from here, and now we save our progress a little. Yeah. And then what is that spot? 1280, 1440. Leave it the same. Save that. Play from here, and now if I fail here, it didn't do it. What happened? I just didn't do my math right. So now, yeah, there you go. Boop. Or we can win the game. Yeah. And that's our basic little obstacle course. We can do some bells and whistles, and I can show you some other things in here. It's putting us at about 2 hours. Ideally, I can trim some stuff. But, so this trigger box, this is the reset trigger box. What about we duplicate and we make a finish line trigger box up here. Again, we want to delete the code. You know, you want to make this flush. You don't want somebody to accidentally just hit the edge or something and think they won the game. Okay. Finish line trigger box. When we overlap, we don't want to. Or actually, we do eventually want to do this, but only after a long delay. So, what else do we want to happen? We want to play a sound. So like a celebration. We can play an animation, which is like a Niagara system. Spawn system at location. Spawn a Niagara system at the location. You can double click and make little pivot points on your nodes, and that can help clean things up a little bit. Get things out of the way. We can add a delay node, so you do reset the level, right? After maybe like 5 seconds. We reset that level there. Omnidirectional burst is cool. Directional burst. Do we have Omni? Radial burst. I'll just do directional burst. Play a sound. You know, you can get some from Fab or download them. WAV files are best. Anyway, that's a cool sound, I guess. Let's see, compile, save. So we go over here. play from here. And when we overlap, we did it. And it kicks us back to the level. Let's get back to that Niagara system. How about we close some tabs, hop over to Fab, Niagara, free. What do we got here? Free spells, that's cool. Let's do a spell, maybe. Let's see, when it has buy, you know, it's like it's a license, professional, personal, makes it free, etc. Well, I guess it's fine. If it lets us have it for free, I'm not using it for money. Just be wary of that with the rights and who wants what for the things you use, and if something actually is free to use or not. Just be careful. You can see which one of these is it gonna load us up into there. Where did that go? Well, we can sort by Niagara. We can find out where these things are. How about this thing? And then if we go here, can absorb that. All right. Yes. Compile, save. Let's see what happens. Oh. Get actor location. It was spawning at 000. Now we're fine. So the other one was probably working too. Anyway. We did it. Is it still like cooking up there? How long does that thing play for? Nope, it quit. Okay. Hello, Niagara. What about a sound, you know? Audio. Free. Personal. You see that compatibility thing? I mean, they're WAV files, so you're probably pretty safe. These are like weapons. But you get it, right? We go over here, we do the sound, compile, save. Let's play from here. And that's our win state. Yeah. We could if you want. There's some other quick things. We got time here. We're already at 2 hours. You're in for the long haul. Why not, you know? You make a new folder for a widget, which is how we can get text on the screen. User interface, widget blueprint, make a user widget, W_winner. Open that up. We want a canvas panel right there. Desired on screen, fill screen, kind of depends what you're doing, but we can add text in here in this text box. You win. And we can change our anchors to the center top. Oh, right, 0, 0. So 0.5, 0.5. You know, if 0, 0 is top left corner, 1, 1 is the bottom right corner with your alignment there. Text, font. You can scale that up. You know, you can pick different fonts if you want. Or I guess Roboto is all we got default now. You got to bring in your own fonts, which that's another tutorial for another time. But position Y. All right, compile, save. When we hit that trigger box, before this. Oh. Gosh. Feel bad. I should have known that one. Create. Add the viewport. And then we have our delay, and then we teleport. Create widget. And then we remove from parent. After that, let's see if that works. I'm gonna edit some of that up so it's not so long-winded. And then it goes away when we reset, right? Yeah. All right, and then we reset the level. One thing you do, add to the level blueprint. Open level blueprint is when we hit the escape key, you can quit the game. So that way when you export it out and you have people, you know, play this as an isolated game, they have a way to get out of it without having to go into, like, you know, the control panel and stuff, or the activity monitor and like force quit it. So I always want to like put that in there as a way for people to get out of there. You can do the Q key if you want. Keyboard event Q. I just do the escape key, compile, save. Yeah. And so that's like a good little initial obstacle course. We got our, well, let's run through it. Why don't we play our level real quick? Let's see if I can do a speed run of this thing. Okay. Oh no, I failed. And then we get here. And we did it. And then we have a loop. So, you know, creating this loop is helpful because say this is a mid-semester project or something that you're doing and y'all display them on your computers at the end. This is a way for it to just be active. If anybody resets it or finishes a level, it'll reset back to the beginning, and it's just kind of easy for people to access what's going on and play your level. Okay, so as a quick little thing at the end, we can mess with some materials. I got into Fab, and these materials look cool enough, so we can add to our project. Okay. Textures, we got some cool names. We can go here. Let's go to our UV. Well, to see what we're doing first, let's grass. I'm gonna make my floor grass. And in the materials, I'm gonna switch that out for grass. Yeah. And then all of our walls. We can make a nice stone. What do we have here? What's our little problem? Let's see what a it is just so stretched. What is happening? Hit accept. How do I do that? I just figured something out with Unreal Engine. Anyway, that's a way to get your UVs back to like a normal amount, I suppose. Interesting. So how about these guys though? So this disappearing platform. Let's make everything look like that. This little project UVs thing, little magic button. Uh-oh. As you can see, we have some minor issues there on the side. Oh, that one's not stretched like that one is. Oh, it says it's rotated around, and that's just however they built this thing. And you know, there's all sorts of other material situations that, you know, that's other tutorials for another time. It's our little disappearing platform. Our moving platform. You can see I'm changing the material over here in the blueprint as opposed to over there in the details panel. Yeah. And now you can see our obstacle course has a whole different vibe going on. Directional light, you know, you could color time it. We can rotate the sun if we want. Yeah. But yeah, so that is our general little obstacle course. Let's play a little round real quick. Right, if we fail, we jump back. Oh no! Something going on with that material there. Boom. And then we're up here. And we won. But yeah. So that's a quick little intro to Unreal Engine. There's tons more to learn. And there's just millions of hours of content out there from which to learn it. And hopefully I'll keep digging and create some interesting stuff along with you in the near future. But thanks for checking this out. Bye.